Hi, Danny. Are you there? Are you there, Danny? It's me, God. The vampire. I actually don't know if 20 minutes and half an hour or whatever it was I said has passed. So I might have to do something. Retweet the tweet. Oh, where's my candle gone? Why do I look like Theta Bara? There's a lot going on. Oh, retweet the tweet. It's good though, isn't it? 19 minutes ago. Okay, I tweeted that 19 minutes ago, so technically we're good. What's up? I was disrespected and mortally wounded emotionally by a dog named John today. The dog works at a bakery. I went to the bakery, they were out of bread. The owners were closing up and the dog was so excited to go home. He had no interest in meeting me. So I expect you to apologize. Someone should apologize to me. I'm getting the candle, hang on. Ta-da! Thank you on behalf of all creatures and humans called John. I accept your apology. I think it was really important for you to say that. Gonna mix a little cocktail. One part some iron water. It's a natural liquid iron supplement because I don't take the tablets because they hurt my tummy. I'm a warrior. So I'm gonna have this, mix it with some cranberry juice, and it's gonna be thematically red when I drink it. Feel exciting. Oh yeah, there goes that iron water. I find that anything you can buy in a health food shop that you're allowed to, that it doesn't specifically say do not take this while pregnant, probably useless. There's probably nothing in it. It's probably homeopathy bullshit. Oh. Don't spill this. I don't think I can taste the iron in it. Maybe I can. These curls are very defined. Separate them. And they're thinner than they look. Kind of annoying. Yeah, if there's no dosage limit, smoking rescue remedy. They're rescuing you from all the cash in your pockets. The placebo, the god of imagination medicine. Actually, no, placebo is pretty good compared to most medicines for psychiatric problems. And placebo is a good group that made good music that I enjoy. Ergo, hi. I'm going to text Evelyn because I forgot, because I always do. I was so excited when I was looking on the Glassons website and I saw the duster from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I was like, oh my god, they're selling the duster. I have to try it on, but none of the shops in Dunedin actually have it. I got a text to YouTube, not vampire or betrayal. Hey, Josh. Oh, sorry. All sniffly. Maybe I did come into contact with that dog. The vampire just lost it laughing when Althea zipped up her coat for protection against vampirity. Vampiritisness. It is just like, yeah. So, recap. Althea lives in a spooky house. She doesn't have any friends since she started high school because she lost track of her old friends and has not made any new ones. It seems like talking to people might have been something she could have done, but... Okay, yep, everyone's on board. But then I don't really remember starting high school that much. It's a time when everyone's brains are extremely insane. And I think in America, like Althea is 17 or 16. It's still deeply insane, but at least they're not 13. Yeah. He's like, not only is your coat not protecting you against me, my coat is somehow like prehensile. It's part of me. It's just kind of reaching out, seeing what's up. I'm just coat bragging. So Althea lives in the scary house with the room in the tower called the shuttered room because there are shutters on the inside and the outside of the windows. And no one's supposed to ever go in there. So she went in there and opened the shutters, as you do when you want to begin a horror series. Yeah, the clothes, they're so... He's just draped in some crap that can reach out and kind of touch you a little bit. Ugh. And the vampire has said, I could make you popular. And Althea's like, no! How? So the vampire's like, just bring Celeste, this young girl who doesn't really deserve to be on the cheerleading team anyway. Just bring her to the house, you know? Nothing's gonna happen to her. Like, she'll be a little bit tired. She'll have to drop out of the squad. You'll drop in. Bada bing, bada boom, you're popular. And Althea's like, ooh, that's not good. I'm gonna do it. The family must know something about, but so far we've heard nothing about Althea's parents. He's a bayonetter. I don't know what that is, but that rules if it has sentient clothing. Actually, no, it doesn't. It's scary. So, we're all familiar with the cast of characters by this point. We've got Althea, the vampire, Celeste, the victim, Kimmy Jo, one of the cheerleaders, Becky, one of the cheerleaders who's kind of mean, Dusty, one of the cheerleaders who we don't have a gauge on yet. She exists. Constance, who is incredibly perfect, and Althea has a massive crush on her, but she doesn't realize. And all his clothes is really his hair. Oh my god. Oh. That would make sense, actually. Yeah, a vampire, you know, he can only wear clothing kind of woven from his own hair. Huh. Yeah, having the rule don't open the shutters in the shuttered room does imply it's been the family home for generations, and sometimes one of them makes a pact with a vampire. I think it's one of those like deals where everyone's forgotten why they don't do it. And our little buddy's learning. So she went to school. Everyone's her friend. Celeste has double anemia and extreme depression. But Althea's like, oh, but Ryan wants me to use his telescope with him. Ryan is a boy, and he likes stargazing, and he has a telescope. Michael is another boy who is going out with Constance. He got born at some point. He has a car. No, Ryan has the car. Michael has a new car. That's it. He got born at some point, has a car. That's about it. And Scotty, who is another boy who exists. Presumably was also born, but we haven't really heard about that. So, going to go to the previous page just to... Oh, the girls want to have a sleepover in the shuttered room. Yeah, they do. They do, and Ryan wants to use his telescope up there. So, Fry and Laurie. So the last chapter we got up to. Beep, ba-deep, ba-deep. Okay, yeah, Becky wants to have a party at Althea's and a sleepover in the room, blah, blah, blah. Celeste is extremely anemic and really not doing well. Like, she's fucked up. And Becky's just like, oh my god, she's like so boring now. Like, she can't even move or like walk down the stairs or anything. And it's just like, oh, it's just drama, you know? It's just typical drama. Yeah, I mean, having a shuttered room like that, it's so easy to just be like, oh yeah, it's structurally unsound, we can't go up there. Then again, teenagers. So Scotty and Becky are being dicks about Celeste. They're like, oh my god. Celeste is so boring and she's keeping secrets from her teammates and I can't even deal with her. So, Celeste won't be tired long, Althea thought. She'll perk up in a few days. I'm not going to worry. Anyway, it's worth it. That was where we left off. She's just been to McDonald's with the popular kids, and that was definitely worth whatever has happened to Celeste. Deadly Offer. Chapter 9 of 44. Wait, no, chapter 6. Whatever. How dark the yard was. She's the cheerleader, no wonder we never win. Yeah, exactly. Everyone is just dicks. How dark the yard was. Althea had not known such darkness existed in the world. There was not a hint of light, nothing at all that was less than black. And yet she could see where the vampire was and where he wasn't. He was half in the hemlocks. Indeed, he seemed half hemlock. His arms were among the needled branches. His hair might have been growing straight from the trees. "You wanted me," he said. "How flattering. You want to give a report, perhaps. Tell me how things are going with your new popularity, perhaps." "It isn't necessary, my dear. Since I created this popularity, I know exactly how it's going." She had thought he was part of the shutters, that the tower room was his coffin, that his tomb was the house. But no. He was growing out of the trees, the thick, black, towering hemlocks. But maybe that was part of it. The trees themselves were also a tower. "I could cut the trees down," she thought. "If I need to, I will cut the trees down." Then she wondered why she would need to. She'd finished her commitment to the vampire. It was over between them. It was just that she had a complaint to register. She said, "I didn't think Celeste would be that tired." The vampire shrugged. The trees lifted and fell with his shoulders swishing blackly. "I didn't promise degrees of tiredness," said the vampire. Althea licked her lips, and the vampire, laughing, licked his lips. She put a hand over her heart, and the vampire, laughing, put a hand over his heart. He said, "All the gestures are blood symbols. Did you realize that?" "But you don't deal in symbols," she said. "No." Once more the air thickened around them. The blackness of earth and sky faded to a pre-dawn grey, and the grey was so thick that Althea thought she would suffocate, that the human body could not absorb clouds of wool. She panted, struggling for air, and stumbled away from the hemlocks toward the house. And the sun rose. The tower of the house cast the first shadow of day. A shutter flapped where it had come unfastened. It sounded like a soul unhinged. Paragraph break. I can see where he isn't too, most places. But then you're gifted. Paragraph break. The school had its own broadcast studio. It's a little bit of a change of mood. The first week she attended high school, Althea had been awestruck. If you were the president of a club or the captain of a team, you went on television and announced your meetings and games. What would it feel like to choose your outfit in the morning, knowing that you would be on television? Kimmy Jo had not been captain of varsity cheerleading when Althea was a freshman. A senior named Katja had held that honour. Katja was tall and lean and looked like an Ethiopian princess. She always wore the most awesome jewellery, and when she was on TV, Althea was overcome with admiration and amazement. And sapphic longing, as as my friends in this thread have pointed out. This year, Kimmy Jo made the cheerleaders' announcements. Her approach was markedly different. No exotic Cleopatra on the Nile. Kimmy Jo was a bubblehead whose statements of when the game was, or where the practice was, or when Spirit Day would be, always sounded breathless and questioning, as if Kimmy Jo was not entirely sure and was hoping a really kind football captain would help her out. Really kind football captains always did. TV announcements were a time in which to say terrible things about people's hair or clothing or degree of nervousness. It's Kimmy Jo again. Does that girl bring her own hairdresser to school? Oh wow, look at that outfit. Kimmy Jo could be one of those TV lifestyle reporters right now in those same clothes. That would be a good career for Kimmy Jo. clapping and squealing. I think she has that down pretty well. And lesbianity. Yep. We've noted the sapphism of the novel, which I completely missed reading it growing up. First because I was 7 or 8, and later, whoosh. Althea never made cruel comments. If she were on the school TV, she would probably hide behind the principal rather than face the camera. She was filled with admiration for kids with nerve enough to appear live on TV. She dreamed of being the kind of girl who didn't even bother with notes, but chatted away, perfectly relaxed, as if having fun. Oh my God, that's what we're doing right now. Although I guess these are my notes. This afternoon, Mrs. Rowman came on. She was nicely named, small, slightly chubby, pink-cheeked, relentlessly energetic. Althea felt that the young Mrs. Santa Claus had probably looked like that, pre-white hair and elves, so to speak. Althea's an idiot. Good afternoon. Mrs. Rowman's smile vanished quickly and she became fierce. We have an unexpected vacancy on varsity cheerleading. Tryouts will be limited to those girls who try out in September. Any girl who wishes to try out must commit 4 afternoons a week, plus the games schedule. She must have a C average or better. All girls planning to try out sign up after school. Any girl who cannot come at the appointed hour, see me today with an appropriate excuse. Mrs. Rowman would never believe an excuse. If you were too busy to try out when Mrs. Rowman wanted tryouts held, you were worthless. Christ, is this Olivia? Althea's class burst into talk. Who quit the squad? They cried. Who got kicked off, more likely, said somebody. Who was it? They demanded of Becky. Celeste, said Becky. Isn't that weird? She telephoned Mrs. Rowman and said she just didn't have the energy for the season after all. She said it was taking too much out of her. The boys looked doubtful that cheerleading could take that much out of you. The girls looked doubtful that Celeste had ever wanted to be on the squad anyway, and it was her own dumb fault if she ran out of energy. It's kind of enlightened attitudes toward depression that held sway when I was in high school. Althea tried to look ignorant of what had actually taken a lot out of Celeste. I must look sorrowful and concerned, she thought, as she rejoiced. Becky leaned toward Althea, her dark floppy ponytail quivering. You should try out, said Becky to Althea. You almost made it before, you know. Even though she was thrilled at the compliment and the suggestion, Althea was a little bit shocked. Shouldn't Becky show more concern for Celeste? Hadn't they been friends? Shared practices and snacks all fall. Althea said uneasily, Did you talk to Celeste? Maybe she'll change her mind. Becky shrugged. She's a quitter. Who needs a quitter? It's not that kind of squad. The class echoed Becky. She's a quitter. Who needs a quitter? But she had not quit. Not really. She had been removed. Becky said, I'll coach you, Althea. You'll be perfect. You're exactly my height and figure too. And Mrs. Rowman is aiming for a better lineup. For example, although Amy's really good, Mrs. Rowman isn't going to take Amy because Amy's too short. And she won't take Brooke because Brooke has to be 7 feet tall if she's an inch. Althea cringed. Brooke was sitting right behind them. But of course Becky, being popular, had not bothered to look around first, because she didn't have to worry about people's feelings. They had to worry about their own. I'm 5'11", said Brooke irritably, and I'm not trying out anyway. I have a full schedule. I'm much too busy to interrupt it for something as boring as cheerleading. Becky and Brooke exchanged several more insults. Then Brooke turned to Althea and smiled generously. "Good luck," she said. "You won't need it, though. You were so good at tryouts. I couldn't figure out why you didn't make it." The smile caught Althea by surprise. It was so friendly, so honest. Maybe I will have friends who are not in cheerleading as well as friends on the squad, she thought. Maybe my life will be packed like Brooke's. Althea smiled tentatively back at Brooke. God, Becky's such a bitch. Becky and Althea walked down the halls, past the lockers, through the narrow passage to the coaches' offices and into the girls' gym. Only one bleacher had been pulled out, and on that narrow bleached gold bench sat so few girls. Althea couldn't get over it. Hardly anybody was trying out. Perhaps, the vampire had said, I could arrange for the competition to be missing. "Wow," said Becky. "How come nobody's here, Mrs. Rowman?" "Mid-season replacements are problematic," said Mrs. Rowman. "The kind of girl we want is not a girl who sits around with an empty schedule. By now, such a girl has other commitments. She's a busy, active, involved person, or we wouldn't want her on our squad anyway." "I don't have other commitments," said Althea nervously, apart from my interview with the vampire. Mrs. Rowman hugged her. "I think you knew a spot would open up, Althea," said the coach. "Your commitment to cheering is very strong. I can absolutely feel it, Althea." Mrs. Rowman took them through grueling warm-ups. Then she led them outdoors into the same courtyard as before. The sun was not so strong. A slight chill rose up from the grass. Althea swallowed. Becky shouted advice. Mrs. Rowman shouted orders. A dozen kids gathered around to watch. One of them was Celeste. Althea tripped and steadied herself on the brick wall. The brick was slightly warm, as if it was slightly human. Like Celeste, who seemed only slightly warm and slightly human. Celeste's face was caved in like a sleeping child's. She did not really cry. She just stared, her mouth sagging as if she could not understand what was happening. "Celeste, I told you to see the school nurse," said Mrs. Rowman sharply. "What are you doing here?" Celeste mumbled something. She doesn't even have the strength to move her lips, thought Althea. Mrs. Rowman said, "Celeste, you are upsetting everybody. That is very thoughtless of you. You've surrendered your place on the squad, which in my opinion was the action of a quitter. So quit. Go. Leave now." Nobody went to help Celeste. Nobody spoke up on her behalf. Nobody leaned down to carry the book bag for her. Celeste could not hoist it from the ground and instead dragged it over the pavement by a shoulder strap. And only Althea watched her go. Everybody else had better things to do. "I knew he would give me popularity," thought Althea, "but I didn't know he would give me Celeste. I didn't know she had to lose everything for me to have something. I thought far across the field, the football team was practicing. Ryan and Michael were there. Ryan, who made sure Althea was going to McDonald's. Michael, who was so perfect. Her heart pounded fiercely, nervously, desperately. I have to get on the squad. It's my ticket to Ryan and Michael, to Becky and parties. And that's high school. Yeah, the ableism is... I mean, when I read it as a as a teen, not a child, I was like, wow, that's just like really severe depression. It sucks. She needs to sacrifice a few more. Just bad people. Never good people. And then it's all fine. Out of the sun, in a cold corner. Standing out in the cold, Fitzy. Fitz! Nope. He doesn't care. That's what you do. It's not problematic in the least. It's very normal. Out of the sun, in a cold corner, stood 8 girls in junior varsity cheerleading uniforms. Sullenly, they watched Althea in her competition. When Mrs. Roundman allowed a brief rest for a sip of water, the JV captain walked over. Her voice was hostile. "I don't understand, Mrs. Roundman," said the JV captain. "Why don't you bump one of us up to fill Celeste's position? It's not fair to put a beginner on varsity when you have 8 trained, seasoned JV cheerleaders available." Mrs. Roundman frowned slightly. She looked out over the grass, and the grass trembled slightly as if invisible feet were passing by. "You don't have a reason, do you?" said the JV captain, trembling with anger. "You just felt like bypassing the JV squad." Whose feet had passed by? Who had persuaded Mrs. Roundman? What was out there on the grass? Mrs. Roundman said, "You people are having such a fine season with your own great coach that I was hesitant to make any such change. There'll be more squad changes when football season's over." The JV captain brightened. "This is a temporary addition then, until basketball season, and there'll be new tryouts then?" "We'll see how everything works out," said Mrs. Roundman, and the JV squad went away less hostile. Althea did not like that word temporary, nor the phrase "we'll see." Football season was half over anyhow. "Is my popularity already half over too?" thought Althea. "Is this all I get? A taste? A few weeks?" End of chapter. I think. Chapter 7. Actually, I need the loo, so what's some non-copyrighted noise? Vampire influence just barely visible. Yeah. I mean, you get what you give in this world. That's why I keep giving people all my money. I'm going to go to the loo, but I'll be right back. I don't know how to mute the mic. But, like, it's the bathroom. It's a whole other room. Or is it? Don't spill the fucking juice. Did you hear that? Did you hear the thunder? That's Laura. I think they're indoors, but I'm gonna check. Well, we'll watch for him. Okay, Fitz is outside. Yes. Yes. I think there he is. My boy. Come on, sweetie. Good boy. Good boy. Come on. He's completely ignoring me and going to eat his bickies. But anyway, both cats are inside. And Thor is well pleased with us. Hooray. So Althea's like, oh shit, what if I only got a little taste of popularity? Fuck. Fuck. But the days to come were sunny and golden. Everything seemed bright, as if the world were made of daffodils and lilies, of springtime and sweet breezes. Oh, sleet. No way. No way. That's so bogus. How warmly the rest of the squad greeted her. Kimmy Jo gave a charming little speech about how Althea was absolutely perfect for the team. Becky gave a little speech about how she and Althea were becoming great friends, and Becky knew that Althea would be a great friend to the whole squad. I don't miss some of the people I used to cheer with. I miss some of them, and I don't miss others. Mrs. Rowman took pains to fit Althea's uniform perfectly. On the snowy white sweater, the golden initials flared like a sunburst. Although Celeste was a lovely girl, said Mrs. Rowman, smoothing Althea's thick gleaming hair where the pullover had mustered up, with that pale colouring she simply did not shine the way you will, Althea. We actually had a cheer coach who put blonde girls at the front of the squad because she thought cheerleaders should be blonde. This was a grown woman. Yeah. Over the next several days, she worked very hard. You do not want to go outside again already. Don't be silly. Becky and Mrs. Rowman stayed after regular practice to help with the tougher routines. Saturday afternoon would be her first public performance, her first football game. No? Alright. But either the girls were kind, or she really was good enough. Nobody yelled at her. Nobody made a face when she needed a second or third try, although once was enough for the rest. Nobody said they wished Celeste was still around. After the hardest, longest afternoon of her life, Friday before the game, Althea staggered back to the locker room. She took a shower there instead of waiting till she got home, something she would normally never have done. There is nothing worse than a girl's group shower, except maybe leaving the locker room with 3 hours of sweat clinging to your body. Never used a group shower. The thought does not appeal. She toweled off, blowing her hair dry, putting her earrings back on. Mrs. Rowman seemed to be morally opposed to anything that dangled. and fixing her collar beneath her pullover sweater just the way she liked it. Exhausted, she made her way to the front wall. And I am interrupting this to tell you that, of course, you gotta take your earrings out, you stupid cow. They can catch on anything and just pull straight out, ripping the earlobe. It happens all the time. Every time I see a cheerleader in a movie and she's got like earrings in, it just ruins it for me. I'm like, oh, well, this is pretend, I suppose. Next you'll be telling me that werewolf isn't real either. The high school foyer was a handsome space with black marble floors and grey striped marble walls. Announcements, bulletins, and the artwork of the week were taped everywhere. Scattered on the plant ledges and the steps were kids waiting for rides. One was Celeste. She looked like a plant herself, drooping and in need of water. She was wearing an old dress with too much material for her skinny body. She was tucked into a corner of ledge and wall, as if she needed several props because her bones had just given way. Nobody sat with her. Althea turned her back. It was best to accept things. Celeste had gotten too much too soon, and she would have to scrape her life back together, and that was that. Althea could not get involved. Althea had enough pressure right now, what with her first game the next day. Althea raised her chin, flipped her hair, and thought cheerleader thoughts. Footsteps approached her. A voice said her name. Althea cringed. She could not make herself turn around. I can't talk to Celeste, she thought. I absolutely can't. It's too much to ask. Why didn't she quit school as well as quit the squad? It's not fair of her to keep showing up and making me remember. A hand touched her. A hand that felt like a sponge, seemed to have no bones and no blood. Althea tried to run, but she was rooted to the spot. She turned her head, and only her head. And it was Jenny Marsden. Right? Jenny, who's never been mentioned before. Jenny had been Althea's closest friend before high school. Jenny had been the one to telephone, to sleep over, to giggle and gossip with. What friends they'd been. That inseparable, essential intimacy of junior high friendship, when sleep is not possible until you share every single one of the day's thoughts on the phone. Oh, that was a weird time. But almost the first day of freshman year, Jenny found a whole new set of friends. She and Althea had hardly spoken since then, and when they did, Jenny was embarrassed and Althea was miserable. Jenny, said Althea, relief sweeping through her with the velocity of race cars taking a turn. Hi, been a long time, how are you? Althea's uniform, folded so the yellow letters could be seen and understood, lay on top of her notebooks. Swinging in her free hand were her blind-your-eyes yellow pom-poms. Jenny's eyes had landed on the precious sweater and the beautiful yellow letters. You made varsity, said Jenny. That's so great. I'm so happy for you. Thanks, said Althea. I'm free, she thought. No more pain because Jenny got sick of me. I'm Althea, varsity cheerleader, and she's just Jenny, former friend. Yellow's your colour, added Jenny. It's your dark hair, I guess, and your fair skin. You look perfect. Thanks. I'm really excited about being on the squad. I'll bet, said Jenny enviously. I never even dreamed of trying out. I could never do the routines. But you kept up your dancing and gymnastics, didn't you? Dancing and gymnastics we used to take together, thought Althea, and in her memory saw two little girls in matching leotards, tumbling and running around. Best friends. Friend is a nice word, thought Althea. But best friend, that's beautiful. She wondered dreamily who among all her new friends would become her best friend. Oh, stop making me feel homo envy. It is like Heather's. Treasures? What? It is like Heather's. But yeah. Ugh, you just don't know how old the vampire is because he's just inhuman. Which of these motherfuckers can best handle me? I'm talking to my old best friend, obviously. I need a new model, but which? Which one? Althea made a quick and frightening decision. Becky had wanted her to have a party. She would schedule it right now, before she lost her nerve. Oh, it was such a quick and frightening decision, I changed the way I pronounced the word schedule. It honestly doesn't matter. He's 23. He lives in the shuttered room. He sells weed. It's mixed with oregano. It's really shitty. He calls it full moon weed and he includes like a crystal. But it sucks. It's not a good crystal. So, she would schedule the party right now, before she lost her nerve, before she was overcome with hostess agony. I'm having a party Sunday, she said. Would you like to come? You'd like the rest of the cheerleaders, I'm sure. Ooh, how she loves saying that. The revenge of it, letting Jenny come to a party. That would be so nice, cried Jenny breathlessly. It's so nice of you to think of me, Althea. Althea smiled generously. She walked carefully to the exit, keeping her eyes on Jenny, making herself forget that Celeste was on the far side of the foyer. Celeste, the only cheerleader who would not get an invitation. The only cheerleader who'd been to the house before. The only one who knew. I love a party, said Jenny eagerly. Want me to help? Althea's heart sang. Her feet danced. I'm having a party, and everybody will want to come. I did it. I'm popular. I have everything. Well, that's going to be the end of the book, because clearly it's all sorted out. Yeah, at the beginning the vampire did say all tuck it out. What's the slang for tired? Well, you could say that Celeste will be off fleek and no longer tick-tock. I don't know what the kids say. I don't fucking care. I hate them. Chapter 8. The phone that had been so quiet for so long was busy every single minute. Becky was delighted. Of course I'll be there, she said impatiently, as if she and Althea had shared dozens of social events. Call Kimmy Jo, ordered Becky, and have her call the rest of the squad. Is that polite? That's the way it's done, said Becky. So Althea called Kimmy Jo, who clapped her hands, a more frequent activity for Kimmy Jo than for most, and said she couldn't wait and would call the others. Althea telephoned Ryan, Scotty, and Michael. She, who had never had the courage even to look steadily into a boy's eyes, called 10 boys. Yeah, that's just 3, dickhead. Everyone was delighted. Everyone said yes. Partly it was because nobody had anything else to do on Sunday. She realised that. Partly it was because they'd never seen her house before. And it was the kind of house that everybody always wants to explore. But partly, she thought, it's me. With the last call completed, Althea walked slowly around the house, thinking of what she'd have to do between now and then. Cleaning, shopping, food, music. The party must be perfect. It would be too cold out to dance on the porches or the lawn. Althea experimented with the furniture in the large parlour, moving it to this side or that to free up floor space. "I'm considering," said the vampire, "who I want." Althea's fingers closed spasmodically around the arms of a chair she'd just shifted. Where was he? How had he gotten in? From her crouching position, she jerked her head back and forth to locate him. He was in the doorway, hands gripping each side. His fingernails were longer and sharper and seemed to be leaving dents in the woodwork. He rocked back and forth, chuckling to himself. "So many choices," said the vampire. The texture of his voice, usually dark like pouring syrup, was much sunnier, as light and warm as honey. Althea stood up. "So many choices. He means my guess. He means..." "No, this is my party. My first party. I'm popular now. He can't come back into this." "I could bash him to pieces with this chair," Althea thought. She picked it up. "A chair," said the vampire disdainfully. "I've avoided destruction for centuries now. A teenage girl with a chair is hardly going to slow me down." Althea made herself set the chair down neatly and quietly to show that she was in complete control. "I'm just changing the furniture around," she said haughtily. "I'm having a party this weekend, and you are not to be here." His eyebrows rose. They arched like cathedral doorways, thin and pointed, vanishing under his straight black hair. With his eyebrows up, his eyes were very wide. Too wide, as if they were glass balls that could fall out. "I'm quite looking forward to your party," he said. He let go of the doorway and admired his fingernails. She thought of the people she'd invited, of the necks he could grip in those fingers. "Get out," she whispered. "My dear," he said. How she hated the affection in his voice. As if they were companions of some sort. As if they had anything to do with one another. "I'm not your dear," she said. "Get out of my house." "You forget, Althea, that I come with the house. I've been here longer than you, and I will be here long after you have departed." Being addressed by name was far worse than being called my dear. It was so much more intimate. It gave the vampire some sort of ownership over her. She wet her lips and tried to breathe evenly, but it was impossible. Her lips stayed dry and her chest rose and fell like a panting dog's. "Go away," she said. "I think not." "Because I do have ownership over you, Althea." He could read her mind. He was up inside her thoughts, underneath her skull. Was nothing safe from him? Not heart, not veins, not even thoughts. Althea felt the terrible cold of his presence, the wet woolliness of the air around him. "I gave you Celeste," her voice cracked. "And so quickly too," he agreed. "So craftily, carefully executed. I was grateful. But a party. 20 guests. I am really quite eager to meet them. She threw the chair at him. But of course, by the time the chair had crossed the room, he was elsewhere. Try to control yourself, he warned. There is nothing to be gained by childish impulses. You and I have been very adult with each other. We've made a bargain. I kept it. I gave you Celeste. That's it. It's all it was, and it's all it'll ever be. The vampire shook his head. She'd seen him nod many times. Nod his head, nod his body, nod his cape. But she'd never seen him shake his head no, and this too he did with his entire body, so that he rotated left and then rotated right. She felt that he could bore a hole through the floor this way and drill himself into the cellar. That's not all it'll ever be. There's always more. One is never satisfied with what one has, you see. I am satisfied. You come to my party and I'll kill you. I will not have anything going wrong at my party. This is the first time any of them have ever been here. It has to be perfect. I'm afraid, said the vampire, his voice like spilled chocolate sauce, dark and spreading and impossible to clean up. I'm afraid that you are incorrect, Althea. You cannot kill me. But in any event, nothing will go wrong at your party. It will be a wonderful party, my dear. You are a born hostess. He studied his horrid fingernails again, as if the wrinkled foil needed a touch-up. She envisioned him in some world, some room alien to her own, in front of some evil mirror, inspecting himself, admiring himself. He said, the tower room, of course, will be left open. My dark path will intersect with... No! There's to be no dark path anywhere. You don't get any more chances, shouted Althea. You had Celeste. That was your chance, so go away. Althea, I hardly think that Celeste, and Celeste alone, is payment for what I've done for you. Cast your short little memory back over the last week. Ryan, Michael, Becky, Kimmy Jo, Jenny. A terrible heat rose up in Althea, staining her cheeks red. The vampire was amused. Did you actually think they were paying attention to you because of the pull of your fine personality? Her heart turned into a furnace of rage and pain. How charming you look with those blood-red cheeks, said the vampire. Blushing is a trait that's always appealed to me. You are sick, said Althea with loathing. Her whole body was trembling. Her skin literally crawled as if it were coming off. No, Althea, I am not sick. I am a vampire. You made a choice, Althea. You. He smiled at her, and the crescent of evil sparkled like diamonds, like the lost sparkle of Celeste's life. You, he repeated. You. That's true, said Althea, but I'm not doing it again. I'm popular now, and that's what I wanted, and that's where we stop. She felt as if each muscle had detached from its bone and tendon and was fibrillating like a bad heart. How could he do this to her? Here's how we shall solve the problem, said the vampire. We shall solve it, said Althea in her hardest voice, by you going away, forever and ever and ever. He tilted his head. He rested his crinkled foil fingernails against his mushroom-coloured cheek. He stroked his long earlobe. She had not noticed before how long his earlobes were, as if his victims in the last struggle tried to pull him off and stretched him. Very softly, the vampire whispered, "And do you wish your popularity to go away, Althea? Forever and ever and ever?" The shaking muscles grew still. Pounding heart slowed. The flushed skin went pale. If he chose, the party that had not yet been would never be. Nobody accepted my party invitation because of a slow day, thought Althea, or because they want to see the house or get to know me better. The vampire made them accept. It's his party. "You choose," the vampire said. It was hard to talk or think or even exist. "Choose what?" "Who crosses my dark path, of course. There'll be 20 people you have invited, and no doubt 20 more you did not. You choose." He smiled. She shook her head. "Not they're my guests." "I'm your guest too. You opened my shutters, did you not?" His voice was like tissue paper floating slowly to the ground. Althea decided to call his bluff. "You are depraved. You are demented. I will not do anything more that you ask except that. I'm not giving in. Period. That's final," she added. He smiled and nodded, his trunk pulsing back and forth as if feeling a pulse. Somebody else's pulse. Teeth hung over his narrow lips like foam on a sea wave. "What is final," said the vampire gently, "is your popularity. Do you wish to make a fool of yourself at your first game? Do you wish people to laugh at you in public? Do you wish the squad to request Mrs. Rowman to remove you? Do you wish her at halftime to put in one of those oh-so-eager junior varsity cheerleaders instead of you?" His voice was slippery as silk and cruel as boredom. He said, "I made you. I will unmake you." She thought, "I can pretend to go along with him. That will give me Saturday's game and Sunday's party. Then I'll be safer and I'll make it clear to him that this is over." She turned her music on. Loud, pulsing beats, guitars and drums and keyboard thrust its way into the room. It hammered and screamed, demanding attention. The vampire frowned and turned away. "Too loud for me," he said angrily. She made a note of that. She would have the house shaking with noise. "I wish to have one of your guests," said the vampire. His smile was no longer evil, it was sweet and innocent, like a child going to a picnic. "You choose the guest," said the vampire. "It's entirely up to you, Althea. I would not dream of taking a friend of yours. Surely there's somebody coming who doesn't matter. If not, simply invite a girl who doesn't matter. Lots of people don't matter." I didn't matter a week ago, thought Althea. But I matter now. Am I going to give that up? At the party, he said, make your choice clear by putting your arm around the shoulder of your choice. Then turn your choice to face those hemlocks that the sun goes down behind every night. When I see upon whose shoulder your arm rests, I will know who follows Celeste. She picked up the chair and hurled it at him. An arm snapped off the chair, but the arms of the vampire were unharmed. She threw the chair again and again until it was nothing but splinters. The vampire was long gone. Next chapter! That was emotional. The vampire could be jerking himself off, but how would we know? He is so alien. If the party's loud, the cops will come. Yeah, and then you can give him a cop. Win-win? Oh, she didn't sign anything. Yet the language is really good. Like, it's better even than I remember. Caroline B. Cooney. She's got another one called Twins that I'm going to do next. The Perfume, also good. Yeah, Burn the Hemlock cannot be a bad idea. Just try. Just go for it. Would you like me to continue with the party? Yeah, sea foam, mushrooms, everything he does is just... It's not right, you know? It's all just... You fully believe he comes from a shadow or behind a shutter or somewhere gross, you know? Like a cupboard where potatoes are growing eyes because someone forgot about them. Somewhere gross. Yes, please? Okay. Let's go. The party. Chapter 9. The tower was a black cone in a velvet sky. Oh yeah, drink. Party. Black needle tips of swaying hemlocks surrounded the tower like evil lace. Shutters banged with an oddly eager rhythm, as if something inside hoped to get out. But no one heard. Music screamed from every corner of the house, and the throbbing drum was the only beat the party guests heard. The house was overflowing with teenagers. Cars were parked everywhere. In spite of the cold and the dark, a sizable group danced on the wide pillared porch that circled most of the house. Some wore coats, some shivered in shirts. Several wrapped themselves and a chosen friend in a blanket and danced double. They're not dancing out there. In the kitchen, liters of soda were emptied so quickly they hardly seemed to have been swallowed, just absorbed into the party atmosphere. Bullshit, no one's drinking. In the living room, I can think of someone who'll be drinking. In the living room, kids sat on the floor watching a movie Becky had brought. In the family room, they lay on their backs on the rug, giggling hysterically at the jokes from a comedy show Ryan had recorded. Good Lord. On the stairs, kids sat in layers like children playing school, moving up one or down one, laughing and talking about life and football victories. In the side yard, 3 members of the football team replayed especially precious moments of yesterday's game. Ooh, I can't remember who she chooses, so it's exciting for me too. I mean, will she choose? And what a game it had been. All the requirements of football had been met. It had been a beautiful day, blue-skied and chilly. The stands were packed. Beyond the stadium, autumn leaves were orange and red. The cheerleaders were brilliant, their uniforms as gaudy as circuses. The team was superb. their routines executed perfectly, their kicks as high as the goalposts. And they won, of course. It's true, thought Althea. Winning is everything. And I am among the winners. It seemed to Althea that the house had been waiting for this evening. That at last the house could cast off doom and dark and return to the laughter for which it had surely been built. Its wide halls were meant for hand-holding couples, not ancestral portraits gathering dust. Its echoing parlour was meant for doubling the volume of music. Its huge kitchen was designed to feed dozens. Althea circulated. She laughed here, chatted there, joined this group, and brought more chips and dip to that group. She sat briefly on the stairs, finding an empty step just below Ryan, who gave her a back rub. It started off masculine and athletic, as if repairing muscles, but became softer, smoother, the harsh digs becoming affectionate strokes. She leaned back against him and held his hand in hers. He cupped her chin, tilted her head back, and they regarded each other upside down. This is pre-Spider-Man, so they didn't know what to do. The house vibrated with music. Each area seemed to have been assigned to a particular sort of music. A hip-hop room, an indie rock room, even a Memories of Elvis room. What? Everybody turned all this music up, good and loud, and here in the stairwell it came together in one great chaotic throb. Speech was impossible. Oh yeah, I had no idea about football. It just looks like putting children in armour and making them headbutt each other. Not sure why. I mean, it's funny, but like up to a point. And that point is when they get hurt, obviously. The night before at Michael's had been wonderful. No kisses, but lots of friendly flirting. No best friends, but lots of loving laughter. Being popular was temperature raising. Her cheeks glowed, her heart was full. She was hot with victory and joy. She was hoarse from cheering. Ryan bent close over her cheek, and she held her breath, waiting for a kiss. But instead he shouted in her ear, "I went upstairs! I hope you don't mind, I wanted to look into the tower room." The tower room? A draft swirled down the long stairway and settled at the back of Althea's neck. She'd forgotten the vampire. Saturday, the game, the cheering, the victory, the party at Michael's afterwards. There'd been no room for thoughts of vampires. She'd been all teenager, all high school, all pretty girl. Ryan wanted to look in the tower room. What shall I do? She thought. How can I stop this? Where is the vampire? What if he appeared in front of people? What if they saw him? It's locked, said Ryan pleadingly. I can't get in. Althea smiled at him helplessly, as if locks on attic doors were the natural order of things, and she could no more solve that problem than she could change the constellations in the sky. She pretended that the din of rock music made hearing and speaking impossible. Ryan made sign language gestures, and they went to the kitchen for something to drink. How bright it was in here. The big double-wide fridge was open. Don't know what that is. With heads of 2 guests crammed in, inspecting the contents. On the counter perched a girl Althea didn't even know, crunching ice and eating potato chips. Somebody crashed my party, she thought, and she was oddly thrilled. You knew you were somebody when outsiders poured in, wanting to be part of the action. I'm the action, Althea thought. And when Ryan spoke to her, she grinned widely and sparkled and giggled. Ryan was only slightly taller than Althea, but much, much broader. He was wearing many layers. White shirt under a dark blue fleece vest with a darker leather jacket. It was a good choice. A little sober, perhaps, but whew, so appealing. Thick as football armour, thought Althea. What would Ryan do if I hugged him? He'd probably hug me back. It's that kind of party. Woohoo, it's a hug party. But I've never hugged a boy. Do I start now? In my kitchen with all these witnesses? Your horse, said Ryan worriedly. Here, have orange juice. Pack in that vitamin C. He pushed away the two heads at the fridge as if breaking up a huddle on the field, and one of the heads that popped up was Jenny's. Althea's voice is always hoarse like that, said Jenny, smiling at the memories of their shared childhood. Ryan was disbelieving. Come on, that's from too much cheerleading. You can never cheer too much, said Kimmy Jo, taking her second Coke. It's capitalized. Jenny embarked on a long story of how she and Althea had once decided to be the jelly donut eating champions of the world. It was 6th grade, said Jenny fondly, and every single Saturday night we slept over at your house or mine, Althea. Remember, we began on jelly donuts on a Sunday afternoon. By Sunday afternoon. Althea had not thought of these sleepovers at Jenny's in a long time. What fun they'd had, just the two of them. We had the nicest times, didn't we, Althea? Said Jenny softly. Althea was filled with remembrance. They had had the nicest times. Althea's eyes grew teary. Oh, Jenny, I've missed you. The girls moved toward each other, tentatively at first, then springing across the kitchen. Althea even forgot Ryan. She thought only of that special friendship, the lovely, silly years when life was golden and donuts were good. I've missed you too, cried Jenny. I don't know what happened when we hit high school. Something came between us, but let's not ever let that happen again. Never, cried Althea, full of friendship, full of love. She put her arm round Jenny's shoulder and hugged her tight. Beyond the kitchen window, between the hemlocks, a path like a black sidewalk grew over the grass, slid across the porch and crept through the silent window pane. It left slime gleaming like entrails. Althea released Jenny and leapt back. I didn't mean that. Jenny and Ryan stared at her. Althea said, I didn't hug you. You aren't my choice. Althea ran to the window to open it, screaming into the dark. She isn't my choice. But the window was already open. The kitchen no longer smelled of potato chips and dip, of pizza and pepperoni. It smelled of mold and rot. The kitchen was no longer bright and airy. The atmosphere thickened. Ryan coughed and said he thought he'd go back to the other room. And Jenny said dimly, Althea? Jenny's face was strangely blank, as if she'd temporarily left her body. I think I'll go outside for a while, Althea. I think I need fresh air. No, whispered Althea. You don't need fresh air. Stay here, Jenny. I've got to hang on to her, thought Althea. Keep her indoors. Keep her safe. but she was too afraid. She hugged herself to keep from screaming again, and that left no hands free to reach out and hold Jenny. Jenny's hand fumbled for the back door and could not find the knob. It didn't matter. The knob turned by itself. Jenny stumbled forward and could not find the step. But it didn't matter. A hand appeared to help her. A hand with long, warped fingernails. A hand the colour of mushrooms. The end for today, because we've been going for an hour and a half. I would actually like to continue, but it's probably a good point to stop. I think Althea probably should have gone for that premarital hug with Ryan. Ryan, who was giving her a sports massage, because Ryan feels just as awkward as she does. And they'll pick up later on. But, you know, lots of things happen at a high school party. And for a vampire to take your ex-best friend who you've just made up with, not the worst thing that can happen. I don't know. A rando who crashed the party, that doesn't seem nice. A bad person, like Bitchy Becky. I mean... But yeah, this is the only YA novel about a vampire tempting a teenage girl to evil that's not about being super gross and 100 years old and wanting to smooch a 16-year-old child. It's the only one, I think. But yeah, thank you everybody for being here and for ignoring my bangs, which are really need to be straightened. They look fucking greasy. They're not. They're just crinkled. The friend did ditch her. Yeah. Jenny ditched her. But I really like how Althea is, she's shitty. But she's shitty in a teenage way, you know? She lacks that empathy. And she forgets things all the time. Like, oh shit, I forgot there's a vampire at my house. And from our adult perspective, we're just thinking, how the fuck do you forget there's a vampire in your house? But teenagers do. I love you too, Evelyn. Thank you all so much. And there will probably be no vampire tomorrow because we have D&D. That came up just as I said it. But there'll be vampire the day after that. I love the idea that Althea thinks that there's only soda at her party. And that's why people are dancing on the freezing lawn. Relatably shitty, yeah. I would never forget vampires, and I still never would. Oh. And thus, with the ceremony, we end this chapter. Did that work? I'm watching myself in the replay. I clicked the off button at the bottom. Alright. See ya. Be good. And if you can't be good, be clever. Bye. Stay out of my dark path.